Hello everyone, welcome to the first official video of this course. The previous ones were just like introduction, but here we are now starting the course itself. So in this section, what we are going to discuss in the whole section itself, we are going to revise a bit about supervised learning, and then we start building our knowledge of unsupervised learning. As you saw in our prerequisites is someone who understands a bit of supervised learning. But we'll just so some of the concepts I'm going to skip, but I'll mention some of them that are important for us to build the knowledge of unsupervised learning. So we're going to look at different machine learning algorithms, and then look at a project in supervised learning and see how we can, and we are going to build on that project when we start doing unsupervised learning, to see how we can use the power of unsupervised to take that project to the next level. So, like I said, we are going to revise. So supervised learning, it is where the AI agent, right? If we are to look at supervised, what makes supervised learning important is the agent itself, or the model, learns from data. But the important part is it learns from data that is labels. Learns from data with labels. So that is very important, that the data set itself, it needs to have labels, and the agent or the model uses these labels to improve its performance on some task that we have given it. Right? So let's say we have emails, and we want to rate them as spam or not spam. This is a very famous example. In our data set, we are going to have a data set that is text from the emails, and also whether that particular email was spam or not spam. So those are the labels. And this agent or the model is going to learn using that text and the labels, and is going to improve its performance using these labels, spam or not spam. And by doing that, it will learn how to separate spam emails from legit emails. That is supervised learning. But if we are to use the same example in unsupervised learning, in that case, we do not have labels. We don't have labels, right? Since we do not have labels, this machine learning algorithm is difficult for us to define exactly what performance looks like. What does performance look like? It's very difficult for us to do that because we do not have labels that we can use. So in that particular case, what we can do now is, when we are using unsupervised learning, is to feed it data. Yes, we are going to feed it data. But what the model is going to do is, it is going to look at the underlying structure. So here in unsupervised learning, it's going to try learn the underlying structure of the emails, of all emails. It's going to look at the underlying structure of the text. And when it does that, it will probably start grouping. Not like probably, but that's the most applicable way of doing this. It will start grouping emails that are similar, right? It will start grouping emails that are similar, such that emails in one group are similar to each other and very different to emails in another group, right? So it will come up with different groups of emails to say, I've analyzed the underlying structure of the text. These emails here seem to have the same underlying structure. These emails here have the same underlying structure, and emails here have the same underlying structure. Oh no, not the green. I'm supposed to use blue on that one. So these emails here have the same underlying structure. And then let's say a human can then now come see, I think these are the spam emails. And then a human can maybe label these as spam, because it has looked at the underlying structure. For someone who can actually think forward, you can see that this has now created other groups. In this case, in supervised learning, we can only create two groups. In this example, the groups that we have as labels, we can only create two groups, spam or not spam. But in unsupervised learning, when it learns the underlying structure, it can create multiple groups. And as a human, you now go in and you say, all right, let me look at the groups. When you analyze the text in the different groups, you might say, yes, this is the group of spam emails. But what I want to emphasize now is you have created multiple groups. Here we have 4 groups, right? One of them being spam. What about the other ones? And that's the power of unsupervised learning. When it analyzes the underlying structure of the emails, it is able to create even more groups than when you're doing unsupervised, supervised learning. This group could now, when you look at the emails, you see, these are emails from family, right? Maybe you're talking about that house, or you're talking about a family gathering, or whatever it is, right? And then it will see that these emails are actually from co-workers. So this is your professional emails. They're coming from co-workers. So they're talking about the meetings that you're supposed to have, the task you're supposed to deliver, and stuff like that. And it will uncover that these emails is actually news or weather related emails. I hope you can see the yellow. I think it's too light. I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it a bit darker. It's going to see that these are actually emails from, like, news emails. Let me test this yellow. Is it? Yeah, it's a bit darker and different from other color. So it's going to see that these are news articles or weather articles, and it's going to put them in this group. And what you see here is these emails, these new groups, they are not spam. Let's just say they are not spam emails. So in the not spam group, you have actually drilled it down. The supervised learning doesn't drill down, it just says not spam. But unsupervised actually creates more groups, more information, uncovers more information from your data set than supervised learning. Because supervised learning is rigid, it just does spam or not spam. But unsupervised, it is flexible, it uncovers the underlying structure of the emails, and you can now label it and uncover other groupings in there. So that was the one thing that I needed to emphasize there. So that is the beauty of unsupervised learning. So it is very, very advantageous to use unsupervised learning when the task is narrowly defined, right? When the task is narrowly defined, when the task is narrowly defined, you use supervised learning. So let's just look at some strengths and weaknesses of unsupervised learning. So let's just say strengths and weaknesses, and then we'll just discuss supervised and unsupervised in this. So the one strength of unsupervised learning is when your data set, you have unknown patterns. You really do not know what the patterns are in the data set. You can use unsupervised learning. It will have a strength there. Or when the patterns are constantly changing patterns. And in this case, let's take, for example, fraud. Because fraudsters are very smart people, right? They try to change their patterns to defraud your company. So when the patterns are constantly changing, using supervised learning is a bit tricky, because it needs patterns that are constant for it to remain applicable. But unsupervised learning, it actually learns as it goes, right? It creates this. It learns the underlying structure as it goes. And I'll talk about the beauty of constantly changing patterns for unsupervised learning in a bit. And then when you have not sufficiently large data. So when you have not sufficiently large data, let me say not sufficiently large labeled data. It's not sufficiently labeled data. It has unsupervised learning is a strength there. One weakness of it is it has a weakness in an area where it's in a task that is narrowly defined. So narrowly defined tasks, it's difficult to really use unsupervised learning because it's narrowly defined, and we can do the opposites of all this when the patterns are known, when the data is not changing, when you have a large data set that is labeled and you have a narrowly defined task. It's better to use supervised than unsupervised. So I wanted to emphasize this part about constantly changing patterns, right? What happens is this. Remember, we had our our emails. Let me stop using that before I change until I change the setting, because I don't want it to. You see, when I use the touchpad, it brings up the controls. I'm going to change the setting so that it doesn't bring up the controls. So you see here in unsupervised, we say it puts the emails in different groups, right? So when the patterns are changing, let's just say there is another new email that comes in, and unsupervised says, I don't know, when I'm grouping these emails, this email doesn't really fit into any one of these groups here. Unsupervised has the power to say it doesn't fit into any one of these groups, and if you set it up in a pipeline, it will trigger a human now. A human will come, and then will be like, oh yeah, this email really doesn't fit into any of these. Where is this email coming from? Maybe it's an email from gaming. Let's say you subscribe to gaming stuff. It's an email about your gaming profile or whatever it is, right? It will say it will trigger to a human, and the human can then come in and label this group of emails as gaming emails. And then now unsupervised, when another gaming email comes in, because there's now an additional group that it has learned the underlying structure of, it will start grouping those emails into this gaming group. So that is the power. That is another power of unsupervised learning. If they're constantly changing patterns, unsupervised learning keeps learning new patterns, compared to supervised learning, because supervised learning needs patterns that really do not change that much. So that's one thing that I wanted to emphasize in this video. In the next video, I think we are going to start discussing. We're going to start discussing how we can use unsupervised. These are just high levels. They're high level details. These are going to be drilled down into in the next coming sections. But in these introductory sections, we're just going to do the high levels. In the next video, we're going to look at how we can use unsupervised learning to improve our machine learning solutions. So stay tuned for that video.